These beach huts, very different to the white ones in Worthing. Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, and I'm continuing my Sussex Border Walk. I have come from Worthing Pier and I'm working my way westwards, and I'm now at Littlehampton, or just right on the east side of Littlehampton by these beach huts, which I have to say look beautiful. I love the colours. I'm filming on a very cold winter's morning in December. We have a little bit of sun, but I think it's going to disappear behind the clouds, although there is some blue sky, which is rather lovely. Now, I may not get into the old part or the main town rather of Littlehampton in today's video, but my intention is to follow guidance from Nikolaus Pevsner, who wrote a series of books all around England, charting the notable houses and making comments on the architecture. I am taken with these beach huts in their variety of different colours as I walk along the beach, obviously. Now, Littlehampton is, I think, mentioned in the Domesday Book as Hanton. Now, I guess that must be the town of Han, I suppose, a Saxon name, I'm not sure, just speculating there as ever. It later had the suffix little to differentiate it from Southampton. So whether they were part of the same properties or just sounded the same, or what there was confusion, that bit I don't know. But I'm going to leave the seafront here now, as lovely as it is, and not so windy today, although we will come back a little bit later. And I want to head into part of Littlehampton that started to develop once it became a bit of a seaside resort. So you've got the River Arun coming in and flowing out at the estuary there into the English Channel. You have the port and the harbour. But before we get to any of that, there are some interesting houses to be seen on my walk westwards. So let's do that first. First place we're going to is Norfolk Place. Just making my way down towards Norfolk Place, away from the sea front here, and just pausing at what looks like a Norfolk Gardens golf course, which is just over here. Talking of Pevsner, he introduces Littlehampton architecturally as pleasant but exasperatingly disjointed, and he's referring to all the different types of house designs. He says it's a bewildering mixture of Old Hastings and Bournemouth. I don't know whether that's a compliment or not. I know that somewhere here, again, if you look on the old maps, there was a big house, and I think it was called Shelley Lodge or Shelley House or something here. It's no longer here, but I know that it was there in living memories. Now we've got all these new builds, and I wonder if this little golf area was part of its property. It was a big old house apparently, because you've got the flint wall here going round, which sort of gives you that idea that that was perhaps its boundaries. Anyway, this is a pleasant little walk down to Norfolk Place, so let's go and have a look at that, because that apparently was one of the first to be built, one of these first sort of residences. And when I say that, well, I should qualify that as being not one of the first houses. There are some beautiful flint cottages and things, but very sparsely spread out in the main town. But this is sort of the seaside resort, 1800s, when people were coming down to live, to take the sea air and get away from the smog of London, I suppose. I believe that Norfolk Place was originally intended to be a square, but it's not quite a square. It's more of a triangle, I suppose, but there's some lovely properties here, as I say, built from about 1800. The first sort of building into Littlehampton from the nobleman, I guess. We got references to horses and carts, and I don't know what the individual buildings once were, but it seems that the money to develop this area fizzled out, and in that corner is now just modern houses. I guess looking at those probably in the 80s or something. But some of these are truly lovely, and you can just see, looking at them, their age. That one there is called the Doll's House into South Passage. And if you were wondering, that's what's down South Passage, the backs of one of the terraces facing the sea. I'm guessing in its day it was the pride of Littlehampton, these little areas. It's sort of now a little bit forgotten, I think. A road here with some rather beautiful houses in, and I just love that architecture of this period. And again, for me, this sort of place I think is where the real history is. It's not showcased anymore. It's just there, weathering. It's rather beautiful. This is where life was really lived. Love that building there with the slate on the front, the slate on the roof, and on the side you've got the pebbles from the beach. Beautiful old place. Now I don't know if you're a bit like me. When you walk down these old streets you can almost sense the bustle and the life force that was happening. You can picture in those early 19th century the comings and goings in these properties, the houses, the elegance as well, I imagine, the horses and the carts and so on and so forth. It must have been absolutely delightful. There's still the charm is here, and also I think very often those people who visit Littlehampton rarely come down to this sector and see this. They probably don't even know it's here. Let's go and have a look at the next phase of development that Pevsner tells us about. This is South Terrace, and it looks out onto the seaside, and it would have been a magnificent view. It's got a few trees and some tennis courts in front of it now, but it would have been, I guess, the piece de resistance really, if you're here for the sea air. And this first section here, so you've got Norfolk Place just in front of me, and then you've got this next section going west, and you can see that there were prospective builders who bought up plots and built 1, 2 or 3 houses. Then another builder came in. It's very piecemeal actually, but because of that it gives it a certain je ne sais quoi. I don't know how to put it into any other words. It just looks rather interesting, and you can look at the design of the building work knowing that it was all from about the 1800s, 1810, 1820, as more and more people were coming down and desiring to live in apartments, I'm guessing, or town houses. Very lovely. I love them. And you can see that they're all 3 stories, but these here, just coming up to, they're 3 stories indeed, but they've got wooden balconies. In fact, some of them are 4 stories. As you start to get further down, the height starts to increase. And then Then we get to a whole completely different style. Continuing further down South Terrace, we see these rather beautiful properties, and Pevsner describes them as a miniature Belgravia with their sweeping bow windows, and they do look rather lovely. 1830s these are, very plush. I'm just walking back towards the seafront here, away from South Terrace, because on this site, on this green sward that's here, which actually it's lovely to see that this is still here, with the prospect of a clear view, especially for these houses, who must have paid quite a lot to have them built, of the sea and the coast and what have you. But just a little along, in front of what is now some modern buildings, I believe there were tennis courts back there, looking on old maps. But this sweeping here of this crescent, I think it is, of flats, used to have the Beach Hotel. So there was a hotel here, I think in about 1770, something like that, 1770s, a smallish hotel on the beach, Georgian looking, very nice. And then it lasted for about 100 years. And then in the 1880s, a newer, as I guess, presumably as Littlehampton started to become more and more popular and the resort was really building, people wanted to stay. So more and more buildings were going up, and so there was this second hotel that was built here, and it was built alongside the first hotel by the people who own the land. A much grander affair, and once it was finished, the earlier hotel was demolished, and you had this real, how can you describe it, very ostentatious Victoriana hotel, which was here facing the seafront. That lasted, I believe, for about another 100 years, up until the 1980s, and then it was demolished, and now in its place we have all these flats. But if you look around the perimeter is a wall, and I think that's still part of the original wall of the second iteration of the Beach Hotel. It had a fluctuation of names, the Beach Hotel and the Beach House Hotel. It's all a bit private now, and no public access, it says. And at one time, you can imagine the Victorian well-to-do coming down here and having their, well, I suppose, picnics and tea parties, and going down, taking the water and enjoying themselves. On this green that I'm now strolling back down towards the seafront, somewhere about 100 yards or so in front of the Beach Hotel, from 1749, I think it was, it may have been 1741, but around that period, there was a post mill here, another post mill, the Cudlow post mill, and it was operating quite happily until about 1831, where a little to the west, actually where Harbour Park is now and the windmill amusements, the Arran Tower Mill was built. And this was a huge mill, massive mill. And you look at the pictures of it, and it's absolutely colossal. It became the main mill of the town, I think, I believe with money from the Duke of Norfolk. And this poor little old mill fell into disuse and eventually crumbled away like they all did. back down on the South Terrace here, as you get further west, you'll see another change in the houses, and that is what Pevsner said was the start of Victorian dowdiness. He wasn't very happy with it. He thought that it had fussy roof lines, as he put it. I'm walking now on a car park which actually is closed. It's shaped like a banjo, and it's called Banjo Road. Here I noticed, I was looking at old maps and I couldn't help observing there was some sort of buildings around this car park area. Well, I think go back to the 1930s, something like that. There was a pavilion here, little pavilion, Banjo Pavilion I assume it's called, because the car park is shaped like the shape of that musical instrument, a banjo. All gone now, and it is really just a car park and I guess coach park as well. There's a Harvester pub here now, down at Harbour Park, and then behind me you can just see the Windmill Entertainment Centre. I don't know if I think there used to be a theatre in there, or a review bar or something. Anyway, it's here that the Arran Tower Mill once stood. Great big sturdy thing, as I mentioned before, and now of course it made way. It came to an end, I think, in the 1930s, when this I think was Butlins at the time, was just improving and developing, and the whole seaside ethos was changing. It was more people were coming down to Littlehampton, and on the other side of this is the harbour. And I've done a walk down the estuary into the harbour and around, which I'll link to on this video, and then in my next video I'm going to start to try and get across from Littlehampton over towards Climping, but that's for the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow, like and subscribe, become a patron, support what I do if you can, and I'll continue to make these videos. In the meantime, from a very cold, and I think we've lost the best part of the day, the light is rapidly fading. Thank you for watching from Littlehampton. Bye bye.